This is Legacy Battle. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe, notification button. I'm Michael Adams, creator of Legacy Battle. My panelists tonight from the Gridiron Battle Zone, Brian King. From Steelers Nation South, Rollo Coffin. And also from the Gridiron Battle Zone, but a Ravens season ticket holder, so the enemy of Rollo down there, we got Dion Reed. Our special guest tonight for our debate of the greatest kicker of all time. We are joined by an NFL kicker out of Idaho. He played from 95 to 01 with the expansion Jacksonville Jaguars, one season there with the Bills after that. He led the NFL in points in 1997, currently sits 91st all-time in points and 76th all-time in field goals. So think about all the kickers through the years and all the players through the years. To be ranked that high is incredible. Check out his Pro Form Kicking Academy, which we're going to ask about later in our Q&A. So we have Pro Bowl kicker here, Mike Hollis. Mike, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Glad to be on.
Awesome. So as mentioned before, we'll have a Q&A after, and our tonight's debate is the greatest kicker of all time. And we're going to start out with Rollo tonight.
So I got Morten Andersen, the Great Dane from Copenhagen, Denmark. He went to high school in Indianapolis and kicked collegiately at Michigan State until 1981. He started during the 82 strike season. But on his very first kickoff, he twisted his ankle and missed the final 8 weeks, or missed the first 8 weeks of the season. He wound up only making 2 of 5 field goals that year, but he was average in 83 and 84, making 74% of his kicks field goal attempts. But in 85, that's when his career would take off. He would make his first Pro Bowl, making 88.6% of his field goal attempts, and in 86 making his second Pro Bowl, leading the league in field goal percentage. He was called Mr. Automatic under 40 yards as he kicked and made 93% of his field goals in the runs. But unfortunately, he was let go by the Saints in his last year with them because he only made 72% of his field goals. And he wound up going to the Falcons, who picked him up, and he made his final Pro Bowl, making 31 of 37 attempts, including a league-long 59-yarder that year. He would go on to play for the Giants, Kansas City, Minnesota, and the Falcons again before retiring after the 08 season. He would play 25 seasons, make 27 Pro Bowls. He was a 3-time All-Pro, and he was named to the Hall of Fame 80s and 90s all-time teams. He has the most seasons of 75 points or more, the most consecutive seasons of 75 points or more with 23, most game-winning field goals with 107. He set the record with 50-plus field goals in a game, which was eventually tied by a couple of different guys, including one this year. Most games played, most consecutive games with at least points, and also most points in the Pro Bowl. He's second all-time in field goals and points scored, and he is only one of 2 exclusive place kickers in the Hall of Fame when he was voted in 2017. Morten Andersen is the GOAT.
So, Mike, not easy for kickers for some reason to get into the Hall of Fame. Your thoughts on just that in general, but also Morten Andersen, I mean, he had a leg. He could kick it long.
Yeah, I mean, the Hall of Fame is the Hall of Fame. I mean, only the elite of the elite get to that position. But, kickers, obviously we score the most points typically of every position on every team every year typically. But as far as just, spectacular things, there's not a whole lot of things that stand out as far as, in the history of what we've done other than making important kicks here and there. So it's I don't even know how they would, devise a system of recognizing, kickers and gauging really their success in general. It's a tough one because we have so many different situations that we've gone through and helped our team win games. But again, we just kick a football. So I think that's really the stigma that goes against kickers and the Hall of Fame in general, is just the fact that we just kick a football and we're only on the field a few times a game. And is it deserving? Yeah, it is definitely, because it's very difficult to do. But it's going to be tough for kickers again. Hopefully, we'll see guys like Adam Vinatieri in there and so forth, and other guys, Tucker even. But I think having Morton in there was something that opened some more eyes to the kicking position, seeing how important it is to NFL teams. So Morton was an idol of mine growing up. I remember going to the mailbox and seeing a Sports Illustrated magazine, and he was on the cover of it. And from that, I think kind of around that moment on, I don't remember exactly when the time was, I decided I want to be a kicker. But that was kind of a pivotal moment. Just I don't know. I just admired him, even though he's a left-footed guy and I knew nothing about him. I played soccer as a kid, and I just remember seeing Morton a lot as a kid growing up.
So great kicker. He's one of the Andersons. Our honorable mentions tonight, I'll just throw that in now since we mentioned Morton Anderson. We got Gary Anderson, of course, Jason Hanson, and George Blanda on our honorables list. So let's move into our second kicker. That's going to be Adam Vinatieri, who was actually a quarterback and a linebacker in high school. He said in an interview in 2005 that he decided he was too short for those positions, so he moved on to kicker and punter. He is the NFL all-time leading scorer by 133 points with a total of 2,673 points. So number one, undrafted, went to the NFL Europe where he played with the Amsterdam Admirals there as a kicker and punter. The Patriots picked him up after that. He would play there 10 years, winning 3 Super Bowls. Then would kick for the Colts for another 14 years, all the way to the age of 47 years old. So very impressive kicking that long. He won his 4th Super Bowl with the Colts. He's on the NFL 100th anniversary team, 3-time All-Pro. Records, 44 straight field goals. Record, most games played, including playoffs, with 397. Most field goals of all time with 599. Dude was clutch. Record 11 overtime field goals and 14 postseason field goals. He is second all-time in extra points behind George Blanda. Now, what made Vinatieri a legend was his game winners in the playoffs and the Super Bowls. We got the tuck game. Everyone remembers the tuck roll game in the snow where he hits the 45-yarder to send it in overtime, and then he wins it in overtime. And then that same season beats the Rams on a field goal. Was it 2001 Super Bowl, 45-yarder up to set the Rams. Then you go to the 2003 Super Bowl. He hits a game-winning 41-yarder to beat Carolina. The 2004 Super Bowl, he scored 12 of the Patriots' 24 points in that game to beat the Eagles. And then with the Pats alone, he had 18 game-winning field goals. Then we go to 2005, he's with the Colts. He scored 15 points to beat Dion's Ravens there in the playoffs in a 15-6 victory, I think it was. So the man was just clutch. That's my whole argument for him tonight, that he is the greatest of all time, because I don't think there's been anyone who's been more clutch. He's kind of close in there, but I'm going to take Vinatieri. So your thoughts on Mike, on Adam? Any idea what made him so good in the Super Bowls? He just didn't seem to take pressure at all. He was just a stud.
That's exactly that. Exactly what you just said. What makes Adam Vinatieri so special is his mindset. I even as a Jaguar ambassador, a former Jaguar, a Jaguar Legends player. We go to the games, and a lot of times we get on the sidelines pregame and so forth. But my son for many years was a Colts fan, and during that time, Adam Vinatieri was playing for the Colts, and so every time we play the Colts at home, I would take my son to go watch the games and meet Adam. And every year, Adam remembered Mason and obviously me, but just talking to him on the sideline, just his demeanor. I was kind of a nervous wreck, to be honest with you, during games, like pregame especially. It's just, I wanted to get set, I want to focus. I didn't want to talk too much and get my mind, off what it is I'm supposed to do that day. And I just wanted to stay focused. And he was the complete opposite. Talk about confidence. He's got ice in his veins. Nothing phases that guy. I'm a little jealous, a little envious of that. Because I wish I had that. I think there's a lot of kickers that wish they had that sort of confidence and mentality when it comes to game day. And he's just one of those guys. As far as athletically and form-wise, I can get involved in form and technique all day long, but I would tell you that a lot of these guys, even the 4 kickers we're talking about today, I wouldn't necessarily agree with some of the things they did form-wise, but they just were incredible athletes that got good at a certain technique. And Adam was another one that never changed much. You watch him, I played against him when he was in his younger years. I think he was 1 year younger than me, I think. First time I met him was in '96 in New England. We was playing for the Patriots, but he didn't really incredibly impress me then. But as time went on, he got better and better, and I watched more games, and I'm like, man, this guy's really good. But I think that just the attitude he had, game days was really cool and chill, and his form never changed. That was really my point, was the form that he used in 1996 when I first met him and saw him kick for the first time was the same form and technique pretty much for the most part that he used until he was 47 and exited the NFL. And so he got really good at that punch style kick. It worked for him. I don't think it would work for me, but he got really good at that. And you combine something that you're completely confident with, that you can do 100% of the time, not necessarily 100% of the time, more times than not, we'll say, and combine that with the mentality that he had. And I'm almost in agreement with you that I do believe he's the best.
Awesome. Well, let's move on to our long distance kicker here, Mr. Consistency. Dion, who you bringing us?
Mr. Justin Tucker. Leads the NFL in the highest field goal percentage and has the record for the longest field goal. I could just leave it at that. But I wouldn't do any justice to the legend of Justin Tucker. Went undrafted out of the University of Texas. At Texas, he kicked and punted for the Longhorns. He had a net of 41 yards and 100% extra point percentage while at Texas, and a field goal percentage of 84 at Texas. His rookie year, he beats out a name that we in Baltimore do not like to speak of, Billy Cundiff, for the obvious reasons. His rookie season went 30 for 33, a 90.9 field goal percentage, and went 4 for 4, 50 plus. His moments of fame is a long list, but it started his rookie season where he kicked 2 38-yard field goals, one sending us into overtime and winning the game versus the Chargers. That was the game where Ray Rice went 29 yards for the first down and led us to the win. Also in his rookie season, 40-yard field goal in the divisional round versus the Broncos for the Ravens to upset the Peyton Manning to send us to New England, where we previously lost on the field goal. So talk about a Cinderella story there. He had the 61-yard game winner and the following season versus the Lions, where he went 6 for 6 in the 18-16 game. A 52-yard field goal in Pittsburgh. In 2015, gave the Ravens their first win of the season, which also helped John Harbaugh not have the longest losing streak in his career. Also in 2015, he had 3 game winners that year. In 2016, he became the most accurate kicker in NFL history. I didn't know this, but he actually, when he became eligible for the NFL list as far as the most accurate kicks, both having 100 kicks, he was only in second place for 5 weeks. That was 3 weeks in 2016 and 2 weeks this year. In 2020, he had a 55-yard game winner in December in Cleveland. That was Lamar's infamous poop game. In 2021, he broke the NFL record with 66 yards in Detroit. I'm sounding like a broken record when I talk about game winners in Detroit. But he's a Super Bowl champion, 5-time first-team All-Pro, 3-time second-team All-Pro. He's on the 2010 All-Decade team. And in case I forgot to mention this, he also has the highest field goal percentage in the NFL history, and he also has the longest field goal in NFL history. Justin Tucker, ladies and gentlemen.
So as time goes on and he gets older, we'll see if he hangs on to that field goal percentage lead. We got Young Ho out there in Atlanta right behind him. So we'll see how that goes. But they all drop once they get a little bit older. Mike, Justin, he may be the best long distance kicker we're talking about tonight. He was clutch as well. I hate to judge a legacy before it's over, but he's that good that we put him on the show tonight. So your thoughts on Justin Tucker?
Yeah, Justin is a freak of nature. This guy is probably the most athletic kicker I've ever seen in my life. And as far as, technical things that he does when he kicks the football, I could never do in my wildest dreams, with regards to just, specifically where he plants his foot. Like, he plants really close to the ball. I could never kick the way he does, and get the results he does. One thing that really impresses me with him is his routine. I think he's got this, once kickers, we develop kind of a systematic routine of everything. When it comes time, when the coach calls field goal, that routine starts. And the way he lines up, the amount of time it takes for him to figure out when he's ready to go. He does a little thing with his stance, and then he gives the nod, and the ball is snapped. And it's one of those routines that I think that most kickers love to have. I did as well. There was, the coaches always want to change up. Sometimes they go, oh, they're catching our snaps, they're jumping our snap, and we need to change the cadence. I'm like, no, don't. Don't do that. Don't mess up with that routine, because it gets you set. It's something that you're always, familiar with. And once they change it up, but, he hadn't had any problem with that, clearly. But with regards to just his leg strength and his accuracy, you combine both of those. Typically, you have guys that are heavy leg guys that can kick it really far, but not really straight. And then you got the guys that are really accurate, but not real strong. But Justin is both, mentally strong too. I've seen him here in Jacksonville attempt, I think he tried a 67-yarder against us, or 65 or something. I can't remember the last play of the game. I think it was last year before. He fell short. But as the seasons go by and the weather gets colder, yeah, he plays in Baltimore, where the weather isn't the greatest, clearly. So, that in itself is very impressive. Anytime you look at guys that have done real well, we talked about Morton already, and how many domes that he's played in, as his home team. And the older you get, yeah, you want to finish out in a dome, but if you're playing your entire career for the most part in domes, you have an advantage. And Justin doesn't. He hasn't been in the dome as a home team, I don't believe. But yeah, he's incredibly talented and gifted, mentally strong. He's got a great sense of humor. I took something that he had said. It wasn't a funny thing. It was actually a form thing about letting the form do the work for you. He said it's a systematic process at that point. And what he meant by that is once the ball snapped, you're just you're a system kicker. And what he means is you develop that system in practice. You fine tune that system in practice. So when you get into the games, you rely on the system to kick the ball for you. And that's been my philosophy since day one. That's what I teach my guys to do as well, is focus on the mechanics and change your mindset. And I think he's definitely got that down, because he doesn't change anything depending on the kick itself. And that's the biggest problem with most kickers, is they actually, try too hard when the kick matters more, I guess. You understand what I'm talking about. Game-winning kickers do things differently. Justin doesn't, longer kicks. He doesn't change stuff. He just kicks it the same. He's a systematic kicker, and he's done very, very well at that. So again, when he retires, we'll see how many points. Maybe he's chasing Adam. I don't know. But we'll see at that point when he retires if he's the GOAT or not.
So let's move on to our final kicker tonight. Go ahead, Brian.
All right, I got Lou Groza, and by the way, he didn't know anything about domes. He came way before all that. So Lou Groza, nicknamed the Toe. He only played 1 year of college football before enlisting to fight in World War II. When he returned, he signed with the AAFC's Cleveland Browns in 1946 as an undrafted free agent. Groza played both offensive tackle and place kicker. As a kicker, he made an impact very quickly, leading the league in scoring in his rookie season. And the Browns went on to win 4 consecutive AAFC championships, with Groza making a very significant contribution to all those teams. In 1950, the Browns joined the NFL. Groza's kicking became even more impressive. He set the single-season record for accuracy, for distance, and for frequency of field goals in each of his first 3 NFL seasons. And those records stood for the next 25 years. It was very rare to even see someone attempt a 40-plus yard field goal in the NFL back in those days, but his methods made him very confident from those distances. In 1950, the NFL even banned his method of putting a piece of tape on the field surface to increase his accuracy, but even after the Lou Groza rule was put in place, he still dominated the kicking game during his era. The great Pat Summerall once said, everybody started to pay attention to field goals when the Browns started to win with them. During his 17 NFL seasons, he led the league in field goals made 5 times, field goal percentage 5 times, extra points made twice, and made 100% of his extra points 8 times, including his final season at age 43. He was named to the 1950s NFL All-Decade Team, the NFL's 50th anniversary team, 6 All-Pro teams, 9 Pro Bowl teams, and in 1954, he was the Sporting News Most Valuable Player of the entire NFL. And as I mentioned earlier, he was a valuable part of 4 AAFC championship teams, as well as 4 NFL championship teams, and he was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. In 1992, the NCAA thought so highly of Groza's impact on place kicking in the game of football that they named an award after him. The best kicker in the nation annually receives the Lou Groza Award. So we've got a guy here who was a frequent champion, who is a highly decorated with the accolades, who set multiple statistical records, who set the standard for which all kickers have been measured for decades and decades. That's Lou Groza.
Mike, before I come to you real quick, Brian, was he so long ago that he was kicking like into the old field goal posts where the
Correct.
piping's
Yeah.
different?
Yes, when the field goal posts were still at the front of the end zone. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Excellent. Mike, obviously before your time, before all of our times, and Brian, there's good some good information that I was not aware of. So thank you for that. Just your thoughts on maybe how kicking was different back then compared to today. Obviously, there wasn't artificial turf back then either. So
Absolutely. For a guy, as a toe puncher, using the toe to kick the football, of course, when I'm teaching stuff, it's the surface area of the ball is smaller, and the surface area of your foot is a lot smaller too when you're kicking with your toe, and so you're trying to hit a ball at a very, very small point to make it go straight. So toe punching in general is very difficult to do consistently. But then you throw the field conditions in there. That was one of the main things I was going to bring up clearly with him, and how difficult that people don't realize how important field conditions are. And you can even go, even with the Morton Andersons and Adam Vinatieri's, and I won't even throw Tucker in there because I think he came in 2012, and a lot of the fields were still, they've become AstroTurf and field turf, and so there's no bad areas to kick on, and your footing is always going to be the same. Now, maybe in cold weather, situations, the footing might be a little bit different because of frozen fields, but for the most part, when you got a guy like Groza back in the day kicking, out of holes and divots and mud and just stuff like that, and for him to do as well as he did, that's pretty incredible. He's a bigger guy too, it's I think that helps, and he played other positions until he got a little bit older, I guess, but very impressive with guys that can kick a ball straight every single time with their toe. And I actually had to do a little research myself on Lou Groza. I didn't know much about him as well before I got on the show today, but very impressive with what he did. And I believe that the Browns had drafted a kicker thinking they were going to replace him. And it didn't work out because he actually kicked much better than the other guy and did better and won the job again. But I think he's changed a lot of minds with regards to the kicking position. Clearly, he's got an award named after him, and so that meant something to some people who made that decision to make that award, in his name. So definitely a stud in the day, and comparing him, any position really on the football field has gotten better since the days, right? Every position has gotten more skilled, more speed, more strength, more everything. We're kicking 66-yard field goals now. That was unheard of back in the 50s or 60s. But with regards to kicking with the goalposts, they were still the same. Obviously the little yard lines are different, of course, because you're not adding the 10 yards, but a 50-yard field goal is a 50-yard field goal. So that kind of is irrelevant with regards to people say, oh, the goalposts were moved up. That doesn't really matter because you're kicking the ball 50 yards. It's always going to be 50 yards. to the goalpost from wherever you're kicking it. So I think Lou did a fabulous job back in the day, and mentally tough. Clearly, he went through some things. Fighting in the war is one of them. I mean, I've never had the I don't want to say privilege of doing that, but clearly I've never had to do that myself. So much kudos to a guy like Lou Groza.
So we're going to move into our vote. Can't pick your own, guys. Just real quick before we do, I do want to mention, because Mike had mentioned maybe Tucker catches Adam Vinatieri. He is currently 200 field goals behind Vinatieri and over 1,000 points behind him. So probably need another 10 years to get close to that. We'll see. So let's move into our vote. Dion, you're in my top corner tonight. Who are you taking?
I can't be biased to pick my own, so I'm going to be biased and pick the guy, who Brian forgot to mention, went to Ohio State, and Lou Groza.
Right.
All right. One for Groza. All right. Brian?
Well, before I do my pick, I just want to throw another shout out real quick. Member of the Hall of Fame, Jan Steinerud. He's also a Hall of Famer too, so he should be shouted out. But yeah, that's I'm gonna go with Vinatieri, but I'm gonna put a little asterisk that I think Tucker will overtake him. But right now I think Vinatieri still has the edge just because of those huge kicks he made. I'm waiting for Tucker to have that one signature kick that we can point to, but I think it's coming. I think it's coming someday.
Rollo?
Well, it pains me to say this. Jesus. So Tucker, most of his career, he's, the extra point has been moved back. So it moved back in 2015. So a lot of his kicks have been 30 yards or more. And the moment he walks across the Ravens walk across the 50, they have a shot at a field goal. They have a shot at points, and it's been like that his entire career. So, Steeler Nation, I'm sorry.
And so that brings it to me. I do want to actually throw in two more shout outs. I didn't realize when I was looking at these stats how good John Carney was. And believe it or not, still active there with the Giants. Mason Crosby, I was very impressed to see him really high up there on all the stats. So kudos to him, especially kicking at Lambeau Field all those years. That makes it twice as hard. So just kudos to him real quick. But I love Tucker, but he's just not done. And I have a hard time voting for people who aren't done yet because I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if he goes out and pulls an OJ, then we're not going to want to vote him as the greatest. So that's my thoughts on Tucker. Brian, I love your argument. I thought it was very good, but I am going to have to go with Morton Anderson, and I think the reason why I'm going with Morton is from the time period that I grew up. It was Morton and Gary, the Anderson, they aren't brothers, but the Andersons, like for a 15-year period, those were the two I watched dominating the game. And I think Morton was just a little better than Gary as well. So I'm taking Morton Anderson. Mike, we come to you. Who would you take to break this tie here?
Well, I feel the same as you with regards to Tucker. Yes, if he was done today, maybe we could say that he was the greatest of all time, in the exception of his points, that he's not up to Adam Vinatieri's level. But I'm going to go with the man himself, the GOAT, Adam Vinatieri. I'm going with him because I know him personally. I could call him up right now. That's not the only reason really, but I've just witnessed him firsthand. I've seen what he can do with the football. I've seen his consistency. I've seen his mental approach. He's a really good dude, very genuine man. And I think he'll be remembered for a very long time. I think he's probably going to be the next one in the Hall of Fame. But with regards to the other guys, they're all, I mean, it's a close second. Tucker is clearly one of those guys that has got both, like I said before, the accuracy and the distance as far as the strength and power. One thing we got to consider too, maybe is as far as kickoffs and abilities that they, kickers, because that is a very important point of the kicking game as well. And we can't just focus on extra points or field goals. More so, I think that there's the ability to do some special things with the ball. Tucker probably has the edge on an Adam Vinatieri for that regard with regards to his kickoff abilities. But nowadays it becomes a little bit more strategic in a sense where you can try to force a team to return the ball and not kick it too deep and all that, but because of all the rule changes. But I think that overall in general, just Adam Vinatieri, just with his mental approach, I think that kind of puts him ahead of the other guys as well. And I'm definitely honored to have been in his presence and be a friend of his during the times that he played and even now to this day.
Excellent. So Legacy Battles greatest kicker of all time, Adam Vinatieri. Let's move into our Q&A. That's a win for me. I get first question, and we'll just go D on Brian Rollo. So I want to take you to the inaugural season of the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's something I love to do on the show, is get players who were on the first season of a team. So 1995. What was the fan reception like before the season started, and after what was a very hard-fought 4-12 season? What were they like at that point?
Our fan base is incredible. I'm not sure, in the last, 15 years or so, it's been a little bit up and down clearly, but, this area in Northeast Florida is full of football fans. I mean, we have, all the Florida college teams here, Miami, Florida, Florida State, Georgia even is right up the road. So there's a lot of college, football fans here, and just not even knowing when I got here in Jacksonville, not even knowing everything that the city went through to get the team here, and really not even knowing all of the information until I was interviewed probably, 10 years ago. They did a special. It might have been a 20-year anniversary or something with the Jaguars. They did a special on the road to the Jaguars and how they became a franchise here in Jacksonville, and I was impressed. I was very impressed and kind of floored with a lot of the things that they had to overcome, and they did. This city is incredibly loyal in a sense where even when I was playing, a 4-12 team, hey, we're a franchise team. We're not going to win a lot of games. That's okay. So I think to your question, I think the fan base was accepting of that, knowing that we were a young team. And then if you just fast forward the year later, then talk about commitment and how much loyalty our fans have and had. Was that year '96 when we went all the way to the AFC Championship game in our second year of our existence. So they know that. I mean, clearly after that point, and then 97, 98, all those other years going to the playoffs. Our 99 season, we were 14-2. So a lot of cool things that we did back in my time. Not to say that we haven't been there again. We, in 2017, I believe, went obviously another AFC Championship game that we lost. But we got there again. But we definitely are searching for that Super Bowl and winning franchise like we used to have. And I think Tom Coughlin played a huge role in that time period during the time I played. A lot of players were a little bit suspect to him, and they were more the veterans that had experience with other coaches that were more chill and laid back towards them. And then Tom comes in and treats everyone the same, and they didn't like that. And I didn't know any different. I'm a rookie, so I'm like, I'm going with the flow, whatever. I guess this is just his rules, which sometimes they were a little tough, but you look back. Man, you got to love that guy. He's one of those player coaches that it's kind of a love-hate relationship, but he made you a better man. And so definitely he gave me the opportunity as well. And I'll throw that in there too, because I had to prove it to him. Tom Coughlin thought I was too short, and I had to prove that my size really didn't matter, and I was able to kick a ball the way I did. And plus I made some tackles too. Tackle Herschel Walker, tackle Tamarick Vanover and Desmond Howard, and a couple of named guys that I probably, most kickers may not have been able to tackle. I was able to bring down, but I was a little scrappy guy. But with regards to our first season, I think it was an incredible atmosphere, electric, city. It was just incredible to see the fans there. Took us a while to get everything kind of squared away. When I first came here in Jacksonville, our coaches' offices were out kind of in little trailers in the muddy parking lot. So it was a little different. I came from San Diego with the Chargers in preseason. I played with John Carney, of course. My first experience in the NFL was that training camp time. But awesome times, and I'll never forget being here in Jacksonville in 1995.
Good, Dan.
Earlier in the show, you had talked about different styles of kicks. I believe you were talking about Adam Vinatieri. For us average Joes, do you mind telling us like the different styles of kicking and how, you know, as far as the technical issue or procedures you have to do these kicks?
Well, how much time we got? I could go on forever, but with regards to just, you know, the things that I was taught, I've got a mentor of mine, love him to death. His name is Jim Gaetano. Nobody really knows him. He's kind of an old school kicking coach, but he taught me everything I know. Pro form kicking is really his form. And really the biggest difference in what I was really referring to is guys that like Tucker, who are incredibly athletic and plant really close to the ball. The more athletic the kickers are, the more they get away with stuff that guys like me can't do. You know, I'm only 5'8" on a good day, 180 pounds, you know, and a very average athlete. I was never the most athletic guy in my high school. You know, I played, you know, varsity soccer, but I wasn't a starter, you know, until maybe my senior year. But even then I was, you know, on and off the bench. I wasn't the greatest. I wasn't the fastest. I wasn't anything. My technique is really what got me to the NFL and maintain my status in the NFL. I've had 4 back surgeries, of course, during the time I played, and that was part of the only reason why I had to actually retire. But with regards to technique, the difference between what I would do and what most kickers do, and even to this day, and it's slowly, you know, progressing. Hopefully, you know, it'll make a wave here soon and kind of get ideas. Kickers to understand different ideas and methodologies. If you think of golf's been around a million years. You look at the number 1 ranked golfer in the world, and you put a video of his golf swing next to the number 200 ranked golfer in the world, and the swings are almost identical. There's a lot of very, very similarities, similar things that happen in a golf swing now because they've kind of figured it out. They've kind of found that basic foundation that works for everybody, and kicking's not there yet. I have found as a coach for 18 years in my academy, almost 18 years now, that there's a lot of guys that kick the ball athletically, and they're able to get away with things that I couldn't do, but they don't use themselves efficiently, in a sense where they're not using 100% of what they can put into the football. They're using a smaller percentage of that, but because they're athletic enough, they're able to kick the ball just as good or higher, you know, straight as far as a lot of the others. And so technically, I would say that, you know, with soccer style kicking, you guys are going to like freak out like that's crazy. I tell kickers and punters, I say, listen, if you went to a camp, the coach told you that I'm going to teach you how to kick a field goal, I'm going to teach you how to kick, you know, extra points and kickoffs and then punts, and we're going to teach all 3 skills. And guess what? The mechanics are going to be almost identical. Would you think I'm crazy as a coach? And most of them look at me like, wait, how are you comparing a field goal in a kickoff to a punt? Punting is totally different. I'm like, no, it's not. It's actually really not. Yeah, there's obvious differences. You're your own holder as a punter. You're carrying the ball with you. You have to kick a ball out of the air. It's not on the ground. It's not touching anything. So that, yeah, there's some, you know, major differences there. But with regards to the body position and mechanics, I think they're almost identical. And one of the first things people say, well, you know, punting is a very forward motion. I'm like, yeah, so is kicking. Well, your soccer style, don't you turn? Like, you don't have to turn, you know, and not necessarily, you know, the idea. And here's really what I'm getting at. Most kickers, we'll say a right-footed kicker, when you line up, you go 3 steps back, 2 steps over to your left. As you stand there, you're left of the football. And as you look up at your target, that target is left of you. So what do you think your brain wants to do? Your body, your brain, everything about you wants to do something left because that's where your target is and that's where you're standing. I don't think of it that way. And the biggest difference for me is I want to use 100% of my 5'8", 180 pound, you know, frame to kick the football. And to do so and to add all that in there, I need forward momentum. Well, if I'm turning to kick a football, I'm kind of slowing down. I give it the relationship of driving a race car. You're driving a race car down the road and you have a 90-degree left-hand turn ahead of you. You're driving 100 miles an hour. Are you going to have to slow down to make that turn? Yeah, absolutely. You're going to have to slow down to make that turn. Well, what do most kickers do? They run up to the ball, they stop, they swing left, and they go about 90 degrees to the left. Well, don't you think that slowing down part slowed down before they actually planted their foot? before they made that turn? Absolutely. So why would you want to slow anything down when you're kicking a football? Put all of you into the football. And so again, that's why I say how much time you got, because I can go on and on and on about kicking, because there's so many different mentalities that are out there. And I think, you know, the consistency comes with fluidity and trying to find something you're not doing real aggressively or easy to repeat. That's my point too, is like, you know, how many times you run in a straight line? 100 out of 100 times you can run a straight line. Well, if you're wanting to turn on the way to the ball or do all these, you know, lateral things on the way to the ball and even at and after the ball, how many times in a row do you think you can do exactly those same things? It's probably less than running straight, swinging straight. So that, I mean, again, I can go on and on and on forever, but some guys get away with it. And again, the more athletic guys, and I'll bring up last point, I'll bring up John Carney. Incredible mentality, John Carney. Very old school kind of kick. He was one of the original kind of more or less soccer style kickers, and he's very lateral, but it worked for him. But the thing is, his strength and where he got his ability to kick the ball, and you know, as old as he was when he retired, to be able to still kick it kind of far, is his weight room. Like, that man spent so much time in the weight room, and guess what? I didn't have to. Because I use more of my body weight and forward momentum to kick a football. And if you're doing John Carney type of kicks, more really wide and real lateral type of kicks, you're going to be using a lot of strength to kick the ball. You're muscling the ball at that point instead of using your body weight and forward momentum.
So, Mike, one of the biggest moments in Jacksonville Jaguars history was their playoff victory over the Buffalo Bills in 1996, and you capped it off with what ultimately became the game-winning kick. So, what's going through your mind as you approach that field goal attempt, and can you describe what you felt immediately as you kicked it?
That was a pivotal moment, kind of in my career, because not a lot of people realize how good of a kick that was. Oh man, you got so lucky, it hit the upright. Well, if you watch the ball, you know, in 45 yards, a minute 32, I think, something like that in the game. Yeah, I know it's potentially clearly a game winner. Playing in Buffalo, I'll tell you, you know, back up. The first kick of that game, I was literally, and again, there's only a couple times I remember in my career that I was literally shaking before I actually, you know, the snap came and I kicked the ball. I made both of those. My first one was my very first NFL kick with the Chargers in preseason against the Houston Oilers. And then, you know, nervous. This was my first experience in the NFL. Well, then the second time I remember my legs shaking in a kick was a 27-yard field goal against the Buffalo Bills in that specific game, the first kick of the game for me. It was just a different environment. It was a playoff mentality. It's an NFL, like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Never experienced this before. It's my first time in an NFL playoff game. Windy, cold, Buffalo, you know, you got the Bills Mafia screaming down your throat, you know, saying things about your parents and your mom and your sister and, you know, things of your family and all that. So, but with regards to that kick specifically, I hit that really, really solid, and the wind actually kind of changed a little bit. And Brian Barker, my holder, said something to me afterwards. He said, "Yeah, I forgot, you know, in that specific moment that the wind kind of changed a little bit, because punters, they know that, you know, they pay attention to the wind, and around halftime the wind kind of started to go in the opposite direction. It was going from left to right, and you know, first half was going right to left. And so Brian actually had he put a little bit of a right lean on the ball. I didn't really care. I you know, I just put the ball down, I'll kick it, you know, whatever. But Brian's experience in holding for other guys previous to me was, you know, he'd lean the ball a little bit to the right, which is fine. I wouldn't want to lean it too much to the right, but my point is that he thought kind of that because he leaned it to the right is why the wind took it so much. And if you watch that kick from back, you can see that from my vision, before I got hit, a lot of people don't realize this too. I kick the ball, I look up, it's going straight down the middle, and then I get wiped out and I fall and I'm looking at the sky. No flag, by the way. I don't know why, but you know, watching a replay, you see the ball take a sharp right, and you know, it was like, you know, the wind just kind of picked up and just pushed it into the upright. But think about this for a second, as far as a solid kick. You know, those goalposts are pretty tall. That kick was from 45 yards. That ball hit the very top of the right upright from 45 yards out. So that was a good kick in my mind. I knew the second, and you ask any kicker, they know the second their foot meets the ball, if it's going to be a good kick or not, as far as solidness. Now, you never know if you're going to make it. As far as further back you are, things can happen, the wind can move it. But the more solid you hit it, typically the more the wind can kind of control it. But that kick was an incredibly important kick for me because it gave me confidence in knowing, I did hit the upright, but I hit that thing solid. I hit it really good. And obviously we end up winning the game and knocking the Bills out of the playoffs. But a lot of pressure on that kick. But again, people don't realize that, I got hit and knocked down on that kick, but I hit it good enough to make it go through the wind enough that it needed to hit the inside. Thank God it hit the inside shade of the upright, and maybe the top. Maybe that had a little bit to do with it as well. But when I fast forward and go, play for the Bills, I had a lot of people remember that kick and say, "Oh, you're the guy that put us out of the playoffs and retired Jim Kelly." And it's like, "Oh man, I'm sorry, but I'm on your side now." So a lot of good times. Those were fun years.
Mike, you wind up playing for the Jacksonville Sharks 19 years after your final NFL game. You were the second oldest player to ever kick in a professional sports game. What made you want to come back at the age of 50, and how did the opportunity present?
Good question. I don't know. I'm kidding. I do. I know one of the owners of the Sharks. He actually owns the production company that did some videos for me for my instructional videos. And I had messaged him the year before because I had a kicker who came down from Baltimore that was looking to try out and wanted to kick in the arena. And I said, Nick, hey, can we get into the arena this week? I think you guys are home. I've got a kicker here from Baltimore who's got some abilities to play in the arena league, and he wants to kind of just kick around, see what he can do. And I'll bring my shoes too and just kind of mess around because I want to have some fun too. And he said, "Oh, let me check you, blah, blah, blah." And, I don't know what happened. The ball was kind of dropped, and that never happened. Well, fast forward about 6 months later, Nick calls me up and says, "Hey, were you serious about that message you gave me last year?" And I said, "Well, yeah, my guy's still looking to play, in the arena league." And he goes, no, not about him, about you. And I'm like, "What do you mean about me?" He goes, "Yeah, you still can kick." I'm like, "Well, I demonstrate all the time. I show these kickers, the certain things that I'm teaching. And so my mechanics are there. I haven't, kicked in a game clear for a long time, but you think you want me to play?" He goes, "Yeah, I do." I was like, "You're kidding, right?" He goes, "No, I want to see if you can come out play." And, I don't know if it was something more of a publicity stunt on his end or just kind of get some recognition for the team or what, but I did. So I literally tried out. And the funny thing about this, fast forward into the training camp that year, I started, kick and get in shape and, for kicking shape. And I show up at training camp and I know that the kicker they had currently on the roster, which by the way, Nick said that they weren't going to bring back, but they actually did, was a guy that I actually trained. And so I'm kicking against a kid that I used to work with. And he beat me out in training camp. Of course, we only had like 4 kicking practices that I had an opportunity to try to beat him out. And he knew what was going on. I was like, "Yeah, fine, And so he beat me out, and I'm like, "Yeah, you outkicked me. You kicked better than me, and maybe this was just something I wanted to see what I can do, and this is fine." So fast forward again. They actually released him. Brandon Bear was the kid's name. They released Brandon and picked up another kid. I can't remember where from. And so when I saw that, I'm like, "Oh, okay, well, that was just kind of something they wanted to see what I can do." And they were impressed. So that's no big deal. I'll go about my way. Well, fast forward another few weeks after that, the kid gets a little kind of injured. He's a little bit, suspect. And so Nick calls me up again and says, "Hey, what do you think about playing in the game this week?" And I was like, "Well, you're kidding, right?" He goes, "Well, we're not really sure this kicker's going to be, pan out, and he's not kicking great. Plus, he's kind of injured, so we'll see." I'm like, "All right, I've been kicking just in case, but yeah, let me give it a shot, sure." So that's kind of how that happened. And like I mentioned before, I've had 4 back surgeries, but again, the way I kick, it's not that aggressive. It's more fluid, and so I don't put a lot of pressure on my back. So I was able to do some kicking and so forth. But after that game, my back was not happy with me, so that was a struggle. It was really. I told them, I said, "Listen, I can't. One game, that's all I got." I thought my back was one thing, but my whole body was just on fire. So I forgot how long those games were. I kicked the ball 22 times in that game. We scored 70-something points, and I was completely exhausted after that game.
Wow.
Should have went back to the NFL. A lot less kicking in a game, right? So, we'll get you out of here with this today. You mentioned it briefly earlier. Your ProForm Kicking Academy. How can people sign up for it? Where's it located, and what can they expect when they go?
Proformkicking.com is the website. Just right here in the back drop here. But with regards to just we're here in Jacksonville, Florida. I do some virtual coaching too. I work with guys in South Africa and Mexico and Canada and Croatia is another country I worked with guys, and of course a lot of the states here in the United States. So do a lot of virtual coaching as well. But obviously sunny Florida, I do have access to an indoor facility, but the weather here is pretty good, so we kick outdoors a lot. But that's where I'm at. All my social media handles are Proform Kicking for the most part, and that's where you can find me.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Mike Hollis, Pro Bowler, NFL points leader. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys.
A reminder, everybody, hit that like, subscribe, notification button. Thank you for watching. We'll see you all next time. Everyone have a great night.